Back to the Culture Call on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. Our desire is to reach and empower the community by discussing a cross-section of relevant topics from various perspectives that are essential to its growth and interpersonal connections. Be sure to save our call-in number, 205-752-4800. Be sure to install the free Praise 93.3 app so you can send L. Spencer Smith a message or topic idea. Search for WTSK in your app store.
This is a world premiere.
Great morning, great morning, great morning, precious people. You know what it is and you know what time it is. This is the Culture Call, with L. Spencer Smith right here on Praise 93.3 FM, and it is a beautiful day, absolutely. Listen, it is the place where Tuscaloosa meets the world, absolutely. And for the next 2 hours, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., I'm going to be right here talking to you about a little bit about everything. And there's so much to talk about, from society to sports, from education to economics, from religion to relationships. That's right. We're here to create a safe space, as we say all the time, to have empowering, provocative, and sometimes what? Controversial conversations. And guess what? You can call in or you can hit me up on the chat, and we can discover and discuss right here together on the Culture Call. My goodness, what a wonderful day this is. Listen, at the top, I want to encourage you to, if you have not done so already, go ahead and go to your smartphone, your Apple or your Android device. Yeah, because some folks have 2 phones and 3 phones, get one for business, one for pleasure. But on each of those phones, go to your app store and locate the Praise 93.3 FM app. It's a free app. That's free 99. And go ahead and download that on your phone. And guess what? You can hear me from all around the world. That's right. No limitations. We are gone global. So whether you're traveling in another country, whether you're in another space, or whether you're right here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, in the surrounding areas, guess what you can do? You can hear us, and you don't have to stop working. You can put on your earphones, or, if you're in a private space, you can let it ring in your office or whatever. But we want you to tune in to the Culture Call so you can hear all of our wonderful conversations and discussions. And go ahead and make preparations right now to email me your public service announcements and events. I keep saying to y'all now that I want to be the one that lets everybody know. Our reach and our expanse is growing every day. And so a lot of people are listening to me. So go ahead and send it to me. But you got to send it to this. You can either mail it into the station and put it to the Culture Call or my attention, L. Spencer Smith, or you can email culturecall.praise@gmail.com. culturecall.praise@gmail.com. Yes. And I would love for you to do that. At least give me 48 hours. So if you need an announcement on a Friday, don't send it on a Friday. Go ahead and send it on a Thursday, right? Because, you didn't just plan the event, or unless it's further out, right? So, we just want to make sure that we have enough time to let people know and work it and massage it into the community so folks can be a part of what is going on. That's right. You know why? Because we do it better when we do it together. So let us create some traffic for your church, for your organization, for your sorority, your fraternity, your choir, whatever it is. We want to see people show up at your event. And of course, you can definitely call in to 205-752-4800. That's 205-752-4800. We start taking calls at the top of the hour at 11 o'clock. And so that we can start discussing what's happening, and how you feel about the broadcast. Yes, I want to hear from you. Lottie, Dottie, everybody. I know your names, all of you all. I want to hear from you. Or you can hit me up on the chat on the app. That's right. That's a convenient part of the app. You can do that. And I will respond. You can tell me if I'm doing good, if I'm stinking up the joint. You can tell me if I'm doing bad and I need to improve. Or you can share with me any kind of topic that you want me to discuss. And that's what we're actually doing today, talking about a listener's topic today. And definitely, I will respond to you. I just want to make sure that you are a part of the conversation and any level that we can provide it. So, hey, listen, let's get started. Sit back, relax, and grab you some coffee. You know what we like to do, Maxwell House or Starbucks, And you know what kind of coffee I like. Yeah, I tested my mother-in-law on that the other day. Right. So get it right. Maxwell House or Starbucks. I mean, yeah, you can do Folgers or whatever other stuff you want, but Dunkin' Donuts, coffee, whatever. But my thing is Maxwell House or Starbucks. I love caramel macchiato. Yeah, I don't drink it a lot, but I love it, right? Or you can go ahead and get some herbal tea, some chamomile or some green tea. That green tea is healthy. It's got a little caffeine kick, so go ahead and you can get started with that. Or simply get some alkaline water. Get those toxins out of your body and get down to that cellular level and wake those cells up. And guess what? Let's together get into the culture. Saints and ain'ts, saints and different ones, as my friend Pastor Greg Morris would say, saints and different ones. Hear me now. There has been so much going on this past weekend that it has been, I'm talking about, hard to keep in touch. I've been trying to write down so I won't miss anything. Just a whole lot of stuff has been happening. And you know what? I try in what I do every day. I really, really sincerely try to connect the dots. I try to make sense of all of this. I try to make sure that, I'm able to bring to you and give some kind of clarity to the community. And also, not just clarity to the community, but to cultivate leadership. Because as you listen to me, my context and how I speak is really to touch the leader inside of you. Because I think the community becomes empowered and stronger when we have when we are faced or when we are fueled by good leadership. So all of that is a part and parcel of what I'm doing every day that I get on here. And as I was reviewing all of the current events, I just trying to figure out this past weekend, so many topics that I want to talk about that I'm preparing for. And I was like, what do I want to talk about this week coming up? And then I saw where one of the listeners, thank you, James. James is from Baltimore, Maryland, right? And he said, yo, I need you to talk about accountability and judgment. And I said, oh, wait a minute, hold on. That sounds like a great topic. And so this one is for you, James. We're going to talk about accountability this week. We're going to start off this week talking about accountability, right? And there is so much to be, when we start talking about accountability. These current events have been a lesson in accountability, right? That the former president, I think this is his fourth indictment. You're missing it. I'm talking about fourth federal indictment. Yeah. Since he's gotten out of the presidency. And this one is these four indictments by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith it looks like some of that stuff is going to stick. They call him Teflon Don, that nothing sticks to him, or they get some underling or someone who's subordinate to him to take the fall. But these right here, that Special Prosecutor Jack Smith has come up with, man. It's going to be interesting to sit back and watch to see how the legal system unfolds, right? We know in this country that the legal system is a little bit different from whether you have a person of means or whether you're what we call an average person who may not be able to afford such legal, awareness, or legal, legal systems and resources, right? Because, legal representation cost. I mean, good legal representation really, really cost. And so you normally see, a lot of times the affluent folks that have money get off. And then you see those who are not so affluent, they have to spend some time or some kind of probation or, have to go to jail. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So it's going to be very interesting to see on these charges, does the former president get an opportunity to spend some time in confinement, or whether a deal will be made to keep him out. And that deal just might be that he has to cancel his campaign, his second campaign for the presidency. Because, I mean, he's still making threats. He's still doing what he's doing, and everybody's crying out, when will we hold this man accountable? When will he be accountable for the things that he has done, things that he has said? Right. And so that's one issue of accountability there. And then we have this whole issue with the young lady, Carly, who faked her kidnapping and, right there in Hoover, faked it and lied about it. And, it came out that there was no child, there was no abduction, there was none of that going on. She did it for attention. And so, of course, she's already appeared before in the court, and they've got a mugshot. And now the Alabama Congress is really trying to figure out, can they get a bill passed that really attaches some level of, indictment time, some criminality to when you fake a kidnap, and it's a terrible time to fake kidnapping. Why? Or human trafficking, with the elevation of human trafficking that occurs in our state and all over the country, all of the missing black women that really never get talked about, because I think Carly was one of the main ones that, it really got national attention, which is very rare with regards to, black women being kidnapped, and to find out that is not true, and all of those resources. And then, of course, you got people on both sides like, well, yeah, she should do something, but she shouldn't do that much time. But see, that's hard to adjudicate. And I'm going to talk about that today as we talk about accountability, because there are people that want her accountable. I don't think there's not many people, rather say, that doesn't want her to be held accountable. But that's another lesson in accountability, faking and lying to get attention, right? And that's very important. Then yesterday, or this past weekend, we have what they call the Montgomery boat brawl. I know that you heard about that. Yeah, that was interesting, that this black security guard was doing his job, and he's telling, on the boat dock, and he's telling this pontoon to move, and the folks in the pontoon get out the pontoon and, started asserting their privilege and beating the guard. And then that turned into the brawl for it all. And some lessons were learned, right? That when you release something, you do not know, when you stir up in a beehive, see, because they thought it was just one bee, that one black bee. And then they stood up in that beehive, and my goodness, it turned into something that was super interesting, in which, there are memes. The internet is undefeated, but everybody's talking about that today. Yeah, so there's a whole lot going on, but all of it is accountability, right? That there were arrests made, and and then there were also pride and feelings and all of that kind of stuff hurt. Why? Because guess what? We're living in a time where people are not really marrying, actions to accountability. That we're living in a time when people are really not understanding that the basic law of physics, for every action, there's an equal and an opposite reaction. They're not understanding that energy is not lost. It is simply transferred from one object to another, right? That the law of nature is accountability. The law of nature is accountability. Here it is. It's written right there in Galatians when it says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, that shall he also reap. That's accountability. And that can be, even though that text is written in a positive sense, is often used in a negative connotation, of course, because you can use it because it is a universal principle that when you sow a seed or you do an action, that you should expect a reaction. And you should be accountable just to the reaction as you were in committing the initial action that set everything in course. And I think today we need to really talk about accountability. And we need to understand that accountability is a universal law set in place by God from the very beginning, right? That seed, S-E-E-D, is an accountability factor. That whenever you sow a thing, that thing is going to come out seed, then time, and guess what? You're going to have a harvest. And I think that's very important, because I think some people believe that they can do things and they can make decisions, and they're so happy about the choice that they made, but they're not actually understanding the consequence. And one of the things that my parents taught me early on in life is that you can choose and make your decision. You can choose your choice, but you cannot choose your consequence. That the consequence that is connected to whatever you decide to do or whatever your action is on autopilot. That if you do something, there's a set of circumstances that will return to you. And we call those set of circumstances consequences. There is something that with sequences, right? So it's going to, that when you make a decision, there's something that's coming. There's another sequence that's coming with it, a sequence of actions that will return to you. And so we understand the boomerang effect. If we understand the boomerang effect. Now, I understand that there are outliers that you can do good and still receive bad. So I'm not talking about, that I'm doing good to people and people don't do good to me. Then that simply means, here's what the text says. The text says, you will reap what you sow, not where you sow. So if you're looking for sometimes the return to come back where you sow it, maybe that's why the disappointment comes when you don't get what you sow, right? But it's going to come back. What you sow is going to come back. That means it's on its way back to you. It is on its way back to you. We say it every Sunday. We say it when we are giving, doing offering. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men give unto your bosoms. Luke 6, right? So we say that, and we understand that from that particular context. But look at that. That's a universal principle. In other words, whatever you sow, much more is going to come back to you. It is the law of reciprocity is also the law of multiplication, right? That you don't sow one seed and get one fruit. No, you sow one seed and from that one you get a multiplicity of fruit or produce returned unto you, right? With sequence. That means it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time. Now, whether that time is a year or a second, you're going to put some time in between that, right? That if you stick a fork or a knife in an electric socket, right? Then immediately that current is going to return to you because that's what it designs to do. Now, when that happens, watch this, you cannot blame it. Here is the American problem. Here is the problem with the saints and the ain'ts, the believers and the non-believers. Here's what the problem is that we want to do that to the socket and then blame the socket when the socket electrocutes us, right? Now we thought, because we had the privilege to choose, that whatever we chose to do, that reaction that we can absolve ourselves or erase the reaction that happens, right? You're going to get electrocuted and you may not live, right? You just don't know, right? But you set the action in place. See, here's what accountability is. You set an action in place that caused another reaction, because here it is. It all has to balance out to zero in the end. It all has to balance out in the end. So accountability is a business word. It's a business term. That means make everything come back to zero. That whenever you input one number, it all has to come out. If I add a number, I've got to subtract a number because it all has to come back to zero. It all has to balance out, right? And sometimes it might seem cruel, but the balancing out of our actions might be something that is tremendously destructive and deleterious to who we are. And so this is why we must teach accountability. This is why a lot of things that we see, I don't feel sorry for the former president, because if you did it, you should, as ordinary people do, that the laws of the universe, the legal laws, all of these things should not absolve you when you set in motion certain things. When you've called and asked the Secretary of State of Georgia to find you votes, that is vote tampering. You cannot do that, right? And they got you recorded, right, so that you could win Georgia? Come on. I mean, if an average person did that, that person would have already been in jail. So, yeah, his position gives him a level of privilege because America is trying to grapple with, should we really deal with this former president, and should we regard him as a former president? But former presidents don't get absolved. Former presidents don't get absolved from actions, from illegal actions. Richard Nixon didn't. He resigned before they put the full force against him, right? And so Bill Clinton didn't. So why should he? You see what I'm saying? And that's important because that falls a lot of times along political lines. There are right now that people are trying to erase his impeachments that he deserved. They're trying to remove it. Yeah, conservative GOP folks are trying to remove it off of his if they win again, if they win the Senate and because the Democrats have the Senate and the Republicans have the House. And so they're trying to erase that. How can you erase that, right? How can you erase the fact that this young lady lied? Lied. She didn't see a toddler from the beginning. So how do we just say, oh, she was just crazy? No. See, because here it is, the backdrop in the time in which you do it. There are thousands of black women that are stolen every day in human trafficking, that are kidnapped and that are taken, and some are killed, and some are shipped to foreign countries to be, sexualized tools, right? Some are drugged in human slavery. And out of all the things you could do to get attention, you're going to fake that? Come on. And see, I get it. We're living in a time in the culture that people are willing to do any and everything for attention, right? They are attention addicted, but without understanding that what you do to get attention has an opposite reaction that, yes, has an opposite reaction that's going to come back to you. That's going to come back to you. We preach it in church, that we say, hey, fill out this form, and you don't fill out the form. And then the filling out the form would have gotten you a certain privilege. Now you're mad because you didn't get the privilege, but guess what you didn't do? You chose not to fill out the form. Well, I didn't know. Here's what the IRS says. That if you owe them taxes and you don't pay your taxes, that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Simply because you thought that you were going to be shown grace and favor. And because here's the deal. I don't think grace and favor is like what we think it is. I don't think it is. I don't think that when you purposefully and arrogantly and pridefully do actions, that those things are erased unless that person is really moved with compassion, i.e. Christ, right? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And that had to come from an absolutely pure place that a lot of us really don't understand, or that we're still growing to understand, right? Because really, when people do things, we want what we call revenge. We want them to be held, accountable. Now, I understand the text that says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. Because vengeance is a dangerous, uncontrollable thing if you don't have any kind of divine connotation of how to handle it, right? Vengeance in your hands will mean you might go overboard. You remember there's a text in the scripture that David messed up. He numbered Israel and he was commanded not to do so, right? And God comes and says, hey, you got to be punished because I told you not to do that. You did it anyway. So let you know. And then David says, pick your punishment. Do you want me to put you in the hand of your enemy, or do you want to be in my hand? That was his choice. That was the choice. And David said, Lord, let me fall in your hands, because my enemy people may not know when to stop, rebuking and challenging and chastising me. So I would rather fall into the hands of you, God, and then to fall into the hands of people who may mean my detriment. Here's the facts of the matter. Number one, he has to be held accountable. Number two, that if you fall into the wrong person's hands, then you don't have any say over what that consequence is. You don't have any say on what the measure of that accountability is on the back end of that, right? If your child goes to school is starting now. If they go to school and you know the policy, this is why at the beginning of the year, they have every student and every parent read the student handbook. Let me say it again. They have them to read the student handbook. Why? See, because if something happens and we have to give your child particular consequence, what we don't want is lawsuits. What we don't need is you coming picking into school, you coming fussing at the principal because your child got suspended, in school suspension, or they got, exposed or whatever, expunged or whatever. They don't want that. They're going to say, well, did you read the student handbook? They're going to say, this is why you sign it, because you sign saying, I have read the handbook. Now, you go ahead and sign it if you want to and don't read the handbook. Then when something happens, then guess what? Now, whose fault is that but yours? And so that is an accountability measure, because guess what? People Human beings do not like accountability. This is why criminals hide. Why do criminals hide? Because they don't want accountability. Let me say that again. Why do they hide? Because they do not want accountability. They don't want to have the consequences or receive the consequences for their actions. And so they run and hide. I'm getting out the way. I'm leaving the country. Right now, an actor, Jonathan Majors, you've seen him in the Marvel comics, you've seen him in Creed 3. You know, he's an up-and-coming African-American actor, black actor, and he was dating a woman, and she accused him wrongly of abuse. It was proven that he was right, you know. And see, here's the deal. Everybody's like, see, I know something. Because you got to be careful how you jump on the bandwagon. Listen, you got to be, because you're going to look with the crack face like you was defending Carly. That's how, because we're so quick without investigation to take sides for people. And you got to be very careful and measure when you do that. Because guess what? The folk you love lied too. Try it one more time. That the folk that you love and support, they can lie too. So you always have to wait and understand find out the truth of the matter, right? And allow consequences to happen. But nonetheless, this man, he's getting ready to go to court. And they tell him this past weekend, the prosecution says, we can't continue with this case because we intend to charge the woman who abused you with domestic violence, with domestic abuse, but she has fled the country, right? She is trying to avoid accountability, but was fully desiring for him to end his career, stop his life, go to jail, because and receive consequences that he didn't even put the action out. That she was well doing that, but when she discovered that they were getting ready to get her, woman of God fled the country, right? Because why? They're trying to avoid accountability. And so many people are trying to avoid accountability. And I'm just trying to say that, sir, if you had sex with that woman and you laid down with her and a baby was produced, why are you running? That's your child. Accountability. I don't want nothing to do. I don't want to see the child. That has nothing to do with it. That's where child support come in. That you trying to run, trying not to work, because you don't want to take care of your consequence. You don't want to take care of your responsibility as the father of the child. I didn't say you had to be with the mama. I'm saying you got a child that you produce, but there are men that are running away from it. Yeah, that there are men doing that. And then you got women on the other side who has multiple partners and don't know who the father is, put somebody's name on there. Now they got to pay child support, and then years later, we find out that that's not even his child. Then there should be consequences to that. That you should not accuse someone of something wrongly, and then we find out that you lied because you didn't know, and you walk away scot-free. You got somebody to help take care of your child for free when they were not supposed to. That's not fair. There has to be, culture call, there has to be some level of accountability that we begin to adhere to, that we teach, that we impart to our children and the next generation. Yes, because the world system, the universal system law is accountability, reciprocity. You've got to learn how. And see, when you understand accountability and consequences, then you'll start thinking about your decisions. You'll start thinking about, if I do sex and so forth, what's going to happen? If I cuss my boss out, if I fight my coworker, if I keep showing up late, if I do this, if I keep doing good, if I keep doing, being responsible, what's the end result? If I keep saving money, if I keep studying, doing my homework on time, what's going to be the consequence? Because again, consequence does not always have to be negative. Consequence is either negative or positive. It depends on the initial action. And you have to be accountable for the actions that you put forth. Listen, Culture Call, it's going to be a wonderful day. That's right. wonderful day. Make sure you've downloaded that app so you can chat it up, or you can call me 205-752-4800. There's so much we got to say about this whole issue of accountability, and I don't want you to miss it.
This is a world premiere.
And we are back, Culture Call, and I'm telling you, we're having an amazing day right here on Praise 93.3 FM. Absolutely. And we've got an awesome topic today. A listener's topic. That's right. A listener's choice. Shout out to James, all the way from Baltimore, Maryland, wanting us to talk about this topic, accountability. Yeah, accountability and judging, right? Because I get that. We're going to frame that this week. We're going to frame that because there are a lot of people thinking that, I don't know the difference between accountability and judging, right? And we want to bring some clarity about what that really, really means. I think it is important for us, even as we continue to discuss this whole issue of accountability and consequences, choices, and decisions, that we understand that they stand, a lot of times juxtaposition of this whole word called judging. And a lot of people think, erroneously, that when someone is being held accountable, that, someone is judging them. And of course, they, erroneously in error quote the scripture, thou shalt not judge not so that you won't be judged, and all that kind of stuff. They start talking about don't judge nobody. And then worse yet, they can say only God can judge me, as if that's a good thing, when, it's not. That's not a good saying at all. But we're going to talk about that because I think that's important. Listen, make sure that you've downloaded the app. Make sure that you do that. Hit me up on the chat or save the number 205-752-4800 and give us a holler, give us a call, and let's see how we can talk about this subject of accountability. Listen. So, accountability is easily defined, and sometimes it's easily defined but difficult to understand when you put your own personal preference and perspective on it. Accountability simply refers to the responsibility or obligation to answer for one's actions, decisions, or behavior. Let me say that again. Accountability refers to the responsibility or obligation to answer for one's actions, decisions, and behavior. Now, why is that important? Because that simply means that everything that we do in life is being measured to come back to us, right? Everything that we do in life is an action or a seed that is being measured to come back to us. And we must be responsible and obligated to receiving that return from the actions that we do, right? And whether that's actions, decisions, and or our behavior, right? That if you walk into a room with a bad attitude and then you receive bad attitudes back at you, you can't blame other folks for having a bad attitude when you know that you came in with a nasty attitude, right? And so I think that's very important. Sometimes people, they get upset. Well, this person didn't tell me good morning. But did you come in saying good morning, right? That you want the person to be obligated and responsible for not greeting you, but did you greet anyone? The text says that if you want a friend, you must at least first show yourself to be friendly. In other words, provide an environment or an atmosphere or a possible connection to where a friend will be attracted to your life. But if you're nasty, if you have an attitude, and then you're going to, on the other side, complain that you don't have friends. No, you initiated the action that I don't want no friends. I don't need people around me. And then you get this attitude and all that kind of. See, here's the deal. That's not being accountable. You have to be accountable to your actions. Now, again, I know that there are some people that don't always return it like you return it, right? Again, not where you sow, but what you sow, right? And I think the people get upset because you want to receive the harvest in the same place that you planted it. Yeah, but as a universal principle, no, you receive what? That means whatever action you put out there, you're going to get that reaction. And it may not reaction, and it may not be. See, most criminals are not arrested at the place they committed the crime, right? Right? That most criminals are not arrested at the bank that they robbed, right? No, they're probably arrested at home, rest in other countries, and have to be extradited back to this country, or whatever the case may be. But very few people get, or very few people get, arrested at the same place. Now, there are things that, you jump in water and you don't know how to swim, right? And then you drown, right? Hey, watch this. Then the preacher and the funeral, he can't get up, and they can't get up and say, God wanted another rose in his garden. Or God didn't do that. God had nothing to do with that. Oh, God knew his time was going to be up. No, that's not how this works. Listen, y'all, you can't put pictures on your wall and call it Facebook. That ain't how it works, okay? No, you knew that you did not know how to swim. There were people telling you that don't jump in because you don't know how to swim, right? Everybody was like, yo, you can't swim. Don't jump in this water. But guess what you decided to do? You decided to jump in anyway. Well, like they said, you can't swim because you ain't going to automatically learn how to swim by faith when you don't know how to swim and you drown. There is no reason for us to get up and lie, right, at your home going, because you're going home, right? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. There is no reason for us to say that, oh, God, why are we putting God in this? I guess it was his time. What? No, because watch this. In order for that to happen, God would have had to push him in the water. You see what I'm saying? Knowing he couldn't swim. We make God responsible when we don't want to be accountable. Talk in here. We make God responsible when we don't want to be what? Accountable. Yes, and one more time, yes. Right. When we're trying to avoid accountability for our actions, folks just love, and we have a bad penchant to do that in the black community. I guess God. That tells me that we have really bad theological understanding. No, that person made a choice. They made a choice to try to break into somebody's house. They got shot. They got killed. Don't go to the funeral and try. Reverend, are you listening to me? Please listen to me. Take it from one rib to another rib. Don't get up there and lie. As a matter of fact, be like me. You have to tell folks up front. We going to say what it is. Or better yet, don't even address the person in the box. Address the waiting congregation. Don't indict God because this person, we are afraid to hold people accountable. Because accountability is done on a scale, on a spectrum, depending what the proximity of the individual is to us in our affinity and our relationships. If I like them, if I prefer them, then them being held accountable is something that I don't want to see happen. I want them to avoid accountability because my love for them or my feelings or my friendship with them want to absolve them from the real action that they make, right? And so, but if you don't know the person, then hey, off with their heads, right? That's why we don't get to decide, the consequences for other people's actions, because there will be some people we allowed to get away with some things, and then other people who we want the full measure of a law to hit them. Exactly. There were a lot of people saying, well, Carly, she shouldn't spend a day in prison. She shouldn't go to jail because clearly she needs psychiatric help. Clearly, and they were trying to find ways and things, they were trying to find ways and things of how to, make it right and try to find her some other. And although all of that may be true, she may need mental and psychological help, but, that's not yours to decide. That's not yours or mine to decide. That there were rules set in place when she did what she did. There was stuff that, again, and she made the decision to make these actions and keep them on and had a nationwide search and everybody praying. And when she admitted that she was wrong or that she lied, then guess what? Then there's accountability that she has to go through. There are consequences that she must face. Are you hearing me, Culture Call? Yeah. And I know, and she may get the mental or the psychiatric help that she needs being incarcerated. I don't know what the legalities of that. I'm not here to argue the litigious order of how things will go, the consequences, because I'm sure that's all still in play. But what I am telling you, how we feel about her in terms of her affinity, or better yet, how we feel about this unfair system in America is a game that she decided to play. Not us. Not the people who are watching, not the people who are praying, not the people who are empathetic to her circumstance and her, her situation, right? Absolutely. So then, comma, we cannot simply adjudicate that from the idea that what? We don't want her to suffer any consequence, but here it is. The law of accountability says something has to return. Something has to return to her. She put an action out there and something has to return. And she must be responsible and she is obligated to answer for her actions, her decisions, and her behavior. Right? Right. Absolutely. See, every day, all of us are held accountable. Right? Every day, I'm accountable to the station. I'm accountable to the Culture Call. I have to be on the air at 10 a.m. from 10 to 12. I don't get to say in the midst of 10 to 12 when I'm obligated that, I'm just want to go hang out. I want to go to breakfast with my wife. I want to do this. I guess I can go to my office. I guess I can, and not show up to what that I'm supposed to be accountable for. Right? That they can't just be air in space. No, I'm going to receive a call, a text message. Where are you? You made a choice to be a part and do this broadcast. So I have to be accountable. You see, I have to be accountable on the days I don't feel like it. If I'm out of town or I'm doing something else, I'm handling some other business, right? Or I'm in class, then guess what I got to do? I got to pre-record it so that you can hear from 10 to 12 every day. You can hear me on the Culture Call. It's called what? Accountability. And I am responsible and obligated to the people that I committed to do what I said I was going to do. You see what I'm saying? You are accountable to your job. You go there and clock in. I don't care if you like it, you don't like it. That some days you don't feel good, some days you do feel good. That right? And you go. Right? You can't just wake up one morning, not feel like any paperwork and say, I'm not going. And then get mad when the people change your key, people hire somebody else, somebody fires you. Well, see, that was the game. Guess what? You decided to play. And why are we trying to absolve people from the responsibility of the games they try to play? Why is that? Why do we always want people to be exonerated and not be held accountable? Right? Now, tenets of grace and mercy in particular, we can factor in in terms of the divine element that consequences should be met with some level of mercy when needed. We are all humans. But here is that. When the whole idea is we are all humans, is not an exoneration that we are all calculating human beings that could have thought out a decision before we made it. What accountability does, it makes us thinking people. Accountability makes us thinking people. See, a lot of times, there are times when people get off from criminal judgments and all of those things, right? And they go through mental, see if they are mentally stable to stand trial, because if not, they still have consequences. They got to go to a psychiatric ward. They don't walk in the street free. You don't just let them go, free, there's got to be consequences. There must be consequences, right? And so this whole idea, accountability involves being answerable to oneself or to others for the consequences of your actions, right? You have to answer for your actions. It is taking ownership for your actions. Now, I don't want to come across preachy today. I promise you I don't. I don't want to come across like I'm, turn your Bibles to. I don't want to come across like that today, Culture Call. I want us to gain an understanding. I want us to understand. When those folks, did not obey that black guy, the black worker, who was trying to tell them, hey, we got a ferry coming in to this dock. And the whole irony around this happening around boats is an amazing irony, historical irony. But nonetheless, he's saying, hey, move because the ferry is coming in. He is doing his job. And they, in their elusive privilege, and that privilege that gets you to forget who you really are and what's really going on, decide to get off the boat and fight the man. So now he's not a worker anymore. He's not, because when he took off his hat and threw it up in the air, I was like, oh no, he's not a worker anymore. Yeah, he threw up the bat signal, and then people started coming from everywhere, to fight, to defend this man whom you attacked, right? And you can't say you did it for the love of country. You can't say you did it for the love of God, right? No, you need to be arrested. You need to be held accountable for all of that. See, we understand accountability there, right? But if the shoes were reversed, we would still have to understand accountability as well. If there was a white shoresman and black people attacked him, we would have to understand accountability there as well. See, accountability is not black or white, red or green. Accountability is you simply taking ownership of the actions that you put out there. And you cannot get mad when bad actions get put out and then bad consequences happen. And then concurrently, you can't get upset and jealous when somebody's putting out good stuff and good things come back to them. You can't be upset if somebody invested in a business and that business starts thriving and they start increasing in wealth, in position, they get a new house, they get a new car, and then you talk about, oh, they don't deserve all of that. Yes, they do. Because they sowed the seed. They put in the work. They took the risk. Why should they not receive the benefit or their risk? That's accountability as well. That is accountability as well. See, that's what I told you. Accountability does not know black or white from a universal principle. From a universal context, doesn't know black or white. No. It only knows black or white in a disenfranchising system, as sometimes the law is in this country. Yeah, that's the only time. But if favoritism is played, racial, ethnic, gender favoritism is played, all these different kinds of favoritisms, that's why you don't see accountability functioning like it should, because people are putting their fingers on the scale of consequence. You see what I'm saying? And you've got to understand that accountability does not have any kind of preference. It's just going to give you the consequence of the actions that you put out there. That's all I want to talk about. We could go down the rabbit hole and talk about, how things are different for black folks than white folks, how different things to this person, that person. We could talk about that all day, because I believe that's why people really don't understand accountability to the full extent and the full measure that it comes. Listen, Culture Call, this is a good topic, a hot topic. Yes, and I am excited. Got so much more to come. Listen, and I need you to go ahead and get rehydrated. Get your little coffee, get your little bite to eat, grab your piece of bacon or something, and stay right here. Don't miss it.
This is a world premiere.
And we are back. That's right. This is the Culture Call, right, on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. It is the top of the hour, 11 a.m. and some change. Yes, y'all. And we are having an amazing day today. Yes. And I'm hoping that on this Monday morning, you're getting up and you're stretching and you're feeling real good. Yeah. You're feeling great about today. Yeah, there are teachers that have already gone back to school preparing for students to come this week. Some have already started. And so we just want to send a big shout out to all of the teachers and all of the administrators and those who make it work in our school system. Listen, we just got a few community announcements. Yeah. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. Get my good eyes on. Because, hey, if I don't have my good eyes on, I don't know how it's going to go. But listen, I need you to be in the Impact Nation August 18th. We're going to have our Sacred Singles Gathering 2023. Boundaries is the theme that we're going to be dealing with. And we want you to register and all of that. You can register at bit.ly/sacred 2023. You can go and come by and stop by the church. There'll be registration there as well on August the 18th. We're talking about boundaries, learning how to protect yourself. And we have registration is $20. VIP is $35. It's going to be a wonderful time. You don't want to miss it. So if you're single out there, Impact Nation is the place to be on August 18th. It's going to be an amazing day. That's right. It's going to be an amazing day. I'm going to talk about boundaries. And I told them yesterday that, a lot of times we keep talking about red flags. People got red flags, X, Y, Z, and that, red flags. No, but what happened to the yellow flags? What happened to the yellow light? We know the red flag means, the red light means stop. But what does the yellow mean? Do we just ignore that? And a lot of times we confront red flags and red lights because we ignore yellow flags and yellow lights. Yeah. And so you're going to have to cause yourself and live in a place of boundaries and understand exactly the kind of context of relationship you want to have, especially as a single individual. You don't want to miss that. We're going to be having a great time there. That's August 18th, 2023, 7 p.m. at the Impact Nation Fellowship Church. Boundaries. It's time to talk to the singles. And so I and all of our church hope to see you there. Again, if you have any kind of community service announcement, send it to us. Absolutely. And email it to culturecall.praise@gmail.com. Do it for at least 48 hours before the event. If you send it on the day of the event, it might just get caught and not come through when we needed to come through, because of all this electronic system or whatever. But definitely culturecall.praise@gmail.com. And we want to let everybody know what's happening in your area. Good deal? Good deal. Listen, this morning we have been talking about this whole concept of accountability, being responsible for the consequences of your actions, taking ownership for all of your choices and decisions. Of course, this is a listener's topic. Again, I say it again, James, thank you so very much in Baltimore, Maryland, for giving us this whole topic about accountability and what it means in our culture and our community today, right? Good deal. Listen, so once we begin to talk about what this whole idea of accountability is, then we have to understand that there is accountability and responsibility for your actions on every level in which you inhabit, right? There is relational accountability. That's the accountability that you have to yourself, to your family, to those who are close to you, your friendships. We have what we call a corporate accountability. That means that when you go to your job, your requirements, your responsibilities, your job description, your duties, you must be accountable for that. Yeah. There is what we call financial accountability. That means that when you get money, you've got to learn how to steward it properly, that your spending and your budgeting and all of those different kinds of things are your responsibilities to understand and not ignore. There are levels to all of this whole issue. There is criminal accountability. Yeah, that, there are laws in this land, and if you choose to break the law, again, if you're traveling down 2059 or McFarland or Skyland, and you're going faster than the speed limit says that you should be going, and then the police stop you, you can't say they're picking on you because you're black. You have to deal with that. Now we understand that there are some law enforcements that are not accountable to the badge, and they override and they go way overboard in terms of what they do. And so, again, they should be held accountable as well. See, we can never avoid accountability. Contractual accountability. You sign your name on the dotted line. Yeah, that we talked about that earlier. That's why at the beginning of school, our children come home with the school handbook, the school and student handbook. And one of the requests is that they require the student and the parent to sign it. Why? So that if any infraction happens with regards to anything in that handbook, that goes on and takes place, then, whatever the consequences will be. And in that handbook, they have the consequence. First warning, second warning. Well, warning of first offense, second offense, third offense, right? And if you're not paying attention to that, your child may experience some consequences for actions that they did. And here you are going up to the district office, going up to the school, acting up, when in fact you signed a book that said, I read all of this, and you made a contractual agreement. Then there is government accountability as well. That's how we hold our politicians and our mayor, our city council, our boards of education. All of those people are accountable to do what is best for us in the civic arena, and make sure that the decisions are made not just for some children or for some political ideology, but for all children. Right? We're seeing a tremendous lack of political accountability right now with regards to what's happening in Florida with Governor DeSantis rearranging and being very historical with regards to African American history. And it's very pointed. It's very specific. And so, we can tell that there is, in his mind, a particular axe to grind. And that's unfortunate. That is very unfortunate, because guess what? It is what it is. You see what I'm saying? And so they're being called out on it. And hopefully when it comes time for re-election, that the people will hold them what? Accountable. That's right. We'll hold him accountable. And, you get the leadership that you vote for, right? You're part of this whole governmental accountability, because how do these people get in office? How do they sit in these spaces of power and authority to wield and to do what is not according to the best interest of the entire city, the entire populace, right? Well, somebody had to put them in. And they put them in because there was an alignment with some kind of agenda. Right? And they're holding them accountable to that agenda. Right? The bad thing about it is because we've been lied to, black folks in particular, we've been lied to by people. I talk about our vote don't count and our vote don't mean anything, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. We're all of that. Yeah. Because of that, we back out of the whole voting aspect, and then we get people in these places and then we fuss and complain. But no, you have to take accountability to that, because they're there because you didn't exercise your civic duty to vote. See, we can never avoid on the daily accountability. And so what we have to do is begin to fashion our minds to begin to understand that, yes, I am going to be held accountable for the actions that I do and or do not do. By a commission or by omission, I am still held accountable. Right? I am still held accountable for that which I did and that which I refused to do. Why? Because all of our actions have accountability measures and consequences connected to them. Now, I want to drive that home today, that we cannot escape them. We cannot escape accountability. Now, since we've said that, let's talk about something really quickly, because one of the things that in James' request for us to do this particular topic, which I really enjoyed, it really leaped out at me, is this whole idea of accountability versus judgment. What is judging? Judging. That if the person is held accountable, is that really me judging? And that's not, no. Accountability is somebody, is the responsibility or the obligation to answer again for one's actions and decisions, right? It defines itself as taking ownership of all the stuff I do, right? That is what accountability is. But judging or judgment, it refers to the act of forming an opinion or making a decision based on a consideration or an evaluation. Now, watch. So here it is. a judgment, when we look at something or judging to me is different than judgment. Judgment means I am using my brain, my conscience, and my consciousness and my conscience to make a particular decision based upon my perspective. In other words, the text says you will know a tree by what? The fruit it bears. So if it's an orange tree and this tree is producing oranges, there it is. If this tree is producing oranges, pay close attention. If this tree is producing oranges, and I say this is an orange tree, I am using judgment. I am using my judgment, right? Because I have analytically and rationally understood that this tree could not produce oranges except the seed was orange. And so therefore the tree must also be orange. Now, just because you don't like the fact you have a preference to apple trees does not mean that I am judging when I see an orange tree. I'm using my judgment, but I am not judging, because judging begins to determine the end result or the adjudication or the verdict of a person's life or a thing's existence. So a whole lot of us, we think folks are judging us when you do have on a red dress and it is a little bit too tight. They're using judgment. Now, what they don't say here is judging, though. Because you got on that red dress and it's tight, you must be going to hell. That's judging. You see what I'm saying? I've attached a verdict to your actions. That is judging. But me saying that you got on a red dress or a red suit and it's a little too snug, bro, sis, that's not judging. That's me using what? My judgment. Now, then accountability comes on your side to say, okay, well, now I like the color red, no problem there. But is this too tight or not? That's where your accountability. If it's too tight, then it's on you. I can't do anything about it. I just use my judgment and say that's just too tight. And we do it all the time, right? There is a sector, not everybody, but there is a sector in this generation, in this culture, that doesn't want anyone to be judged for how they live their lives. I get it and I understand, right? But me using my judgment is not judging you. It's not judging, right? I'm just saying you're going to have to be accountable for your actions, right? But for me, I'm looking at your actions and saying your actions don't make sense. Therefore, that's it. I'm using my judgment and saying your actions don't make sense. We're having a big conversation right now where people are trying to say, well, you have to use the pronouns that I want you to use to describe who I am. No, I don't have a problem with how you use your pronouns, but you can't tell me how to use mine because you're accusing me of doing the exact same thing that you say I'm doing, and you're doing in the name of intellect, in the name of egalitarianism, making everything equal, in the name of you thinking that I am judging you. No, I'm making a judgment. I know what I have determined and what science and all that has determined to be a thing. Well, the science is bogus because there are other people. Okay, well, I haven't read that. So I'm only going to go by what the science I know proves to me. But can you live as a human being? Yes, absolutely. Am I going to discourage you? Am I going to ask that, you be killed and I'm going to die, or you go to jail or whatever? No, that would be judging. Am I going to say, oh, you're going to hell and all that kind of stuff? Because I think people preach more about hell than hell is in the Bible. We ain't scared to send somebody to hell, right? So I get that argument. Right. But when we see things that we consider to be beneath the standard of what we think or what Scripture thinks, you genuflect and normally bow down and say that person is going to hell. We don't witness. We don't minister. We don't pray for. We don't build a relationship. We don't build a bridge to share the gospel. We don't do any of that. We don't try to find any kind of level of congeniality or find out what the person's journey is, what the backstory is. We say, go to hell, go directly to hell, do not pass go, do not collect $200. And that is absolutely wrong. That is not what we should do, right? As someone who was raised in a Pentecostal holiness church, sanctified church, what they used to call it back in the day, coming from the Holy Rollers, that we did a whole lot of that. A whole lot of that. When we could not cognitively explain or had no community around it, had no bridge building, then we automatically, yes, judged it and sent it to hell. And that right there, it was absolutely wrong because we missed the opportunity, right? We would have sent that woman that was caught in the act of adultery to hell. We would have sent the woman that was at the well, at Jacob's well, to hell. We would have sent that. We would have been judging, not using judgment, right? But whatever they did in their lives, they had to be what? Held accountable for. So then we have nothing to do with what their consequences will be, right? We have nothing to do with that. The issue is when we try to judge their entire lives, when we don't know how it is. We don't know how it's going to go for us from day to day, right? So it's that formulation of that opinion or trying to make a decision about someone or for someone in a certain area and a particular standard. That's what judging is. And watch this, and you've got to be very careful about that whole judging piece. I'm not saying not to use judgment, because all of us have to use what? Judgment. That doesn't mean I have to judge. I can say a thing is a thing without saying, in its present state, without saying how that thing is going to end up. Let me say it again. I can determine what a thing is by judgment, by looking at it, and but what I cannot do is say how that thing will end up, because all I'm using my judgment for is to determine what it is in its present state. Anything that person does, they have to be held accountable for. If they use poor judgment in making their decisions, they must be held accountable for. I don't have to be held accountable for the judgment that they made. You see, I don't have to. I don't have to deal with the consequences for the judgment they made unless we have some kind of proximity and we're in close relationship and we're supposed to be. And now, for example, Joshua and Caleb have to stay in the wilderness 40 years, even though they saw that the land was full of promise. It was exactly the land that God had promised, but they had to stay in the wilderness those 40 years, rather, with the folks that did not believe. Now that right there is making me a partner with your consequence, even though I can't be accountable to your decision to doubt God. See, but the level of proximity, right? If your team on your job, somebody on your job does not do their part, right? And they show up the day that it is required, then whatever your team gets is, that person is held accountable for not doing their part, but you are part of the consequence because you are on their team. You see, that's something that you really need to understand. And I want you to get that, because don't mess that up. So this thing takes levels of understanding. This takes you to understanding that, hey, I better be careful who I partner myself up with. I got to be careful and accountable how I select my relationships, because the consequence is that I might yoke myself up with somebody that I don't need to be with. And then long term, I get caught up into something that has absolutely nothing to do with the actions that I did. But because I'm connected to them, I am accountable for their actions and must take part in their in their consequence. Absolutely. That's how that works. That's how that flows. That's where that goes. Right? And so, Culture Code, we have to start thinking about that. That's why we got to start telling people, hey, accountability. See, Trump's family is going to be affected. His inner circle. He's not on trial by himself. Everybody he was in cahoots and partners with him, even if he made a decision, if they carried it out, guess what? They too experienced the consequence. Right? Carly is not by herself. Her family is and her folks who defended her are a part of those consequences, right? And see, that's important for us to understand, that when we're deciding on who we will be with and who's in our relationship, remember the word accountability, because I have to have relational accountability, right? When you look at some of these TV shows and somebody in a family does something criminal, well, what law is going to do is first interview the family to find out if anybody aided and abetted. If anybody else knew, they want to know, do you know where they are? When was the last time you spoke with them? What was their state of mind? Have they contacted you since then? What do you know about it? Because what they're trying to figure out is not just where that person is. They're also trying to figure out what level of accountability, or if any, do you play in the situation? You feel what I'm saying? And so Culture Call, we have to start thinking about that. We have to start thinking about that. See, those folks that attacked that black man on that shore, on that boat dock this weekend, did not understand that as a community, he was connected to more people. They did not expect all those folks to show up. They thought they were going to use their privilege and beat that man up, get on their pontoon and go eat their beer and leave him on the dock. That's exactly what they thought they were going to do. They didn't know that once that man threw his head up, they didn't know that he had folks. They didn't know that folks were getting ready to show up and that they were going to have to deal with, oh, wait a minute. I didn't know No. See, now, because all these people are in vicarious relationship with him, and now you got to take a community beat down. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Take this community beat down. See, because people, and then they want to hold this sad story about, no. Accountability. You have to start thinking about what you are doing. Think about it. Think about, can I last? Can I handle the potential consequences? Back in school, they taught us a while that before we made any decision, get out a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle. Y'all know where I'm going with this. And the teacher would say, on one column, write out the pros, and one column, write out the cons. And on the top, write out the actions that you're thinking about taking. What's the benefit? What's the pros of the action you're taking? And what's the cons of the action you're taking? And watch this. If the pros outweigh the cons, go ahead with the action. If the cons outweigh the pro, you might need to rethink, because guess what? Once you put this action in motion, let me say this again. Once you put this action in motion, you are going to have to deal with the consequences. You feel me, Culture Call? You're going to have to understand, as a leader, the text says, in the multitude of counselors, there is safety, right? That means before you decide on anything, you should get some kind of input. Get people around you to say, well, if you go this direction, here's what's going to happen. If you go that direction, here's what's going to happen. Don't just get with people who are cheerleading you and to make a decision, but they're not active in the process of helping you think through what you will be accountable for if you do certain actions. You feel what I'm saying? Don't get with anybody. Don't have anybody in your staff. If you're a leader, if you're a pastor, if you're a principal, if you're, any person, a supervisor, don't get with people who are just so enamored by having some level of closeness and proximity to your title and your position that they're not on your team to help you think through to the conclusions, to the potential consequences of certain actions and behaviors. Because guess what? Once you make a decision, consequences are going to come. Once you push send in that email, consequences are going to happen. Once you push post on your social media, consequences are going to come. It is funny that people say, they put their business out on social media, then people start responding positively and negatively, and then they get mad and tell them, well, why don't you mind your own business? No, why did you put it? This is a public forum. This is Facebook. It literally tells you it's a book where face is going to see it. Right? You put it on there to get attention, but you refuse to take the accountability for you putting it on there. If I don't want your opinion on something, then I'm not going to post it. There you go. If I don't want to hear what you got to say about X, Y, Z, then I'm not going to post it. Not going to do it. No. If I post a thing and somebody comes on my post and says something negatively, that's a part of the consequence of me posting. Now, I've got a decision to ignore that person and their comment, or I have a decision to get up under their post and either clarify or better yet, rectify what they're trying to say to me based upon what I put on my post. But what I cannot say is once I put it on my post and they are part of my community of friends, that they don't have a right to respond. That's a part of the consequence of posting something on social media. You see? Absolutely. So we have to understand how accountability works. If you're not ready to be accountable for your actions, then you're not ready to live. You're not ready to be, you're not ready to grow. You're not ready to have promotion and jobs and a family and a wife. You're not ready for none of it because all of those things come with accountability for your actions. There are consequences. Yeah. Sir, if you are want to be married, you're single and you get married, you can't just stay out all time of night, going to clubs and all that kind of stuff like you a single man. No, sir. No, you are accountable to that woman. It's in the vows. You are accountable to her. Absolutely. Yeah. That means you just can't walk out the house and go where you want to go. No, that's an argument. You left that when you were single. Now you have to be accountable to being married, sir. So that means she deserves to know where you go. Woman of God, you can't just go out with your girls, I don't care if you're going to the quartet concert. I don't care if you're going to the women's Bible study, or I don't care if you're going to brunch. No. He says, hey, where you going? I don't have to tell you and my daddy. No. I'm someone greater now. I'm your husband. Because that's accountability. Where are you? And I know everybody think they're grown. I get it. But accountability, yes, if you're grown, you can be accountable. Right? I don't get on the plane and go fly out for revival and my wife don't know where I am. No. Absolutely. Whether she's going with me or not, I have to be accountable to let her know where I am. Period. And that's not being a child. That's being responsible for the consequences of marriage. That goes with it. Yeah. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. I know you felt some type of way about what I just said. But before I take it back, I will add more to it. Culture Call. Listen, we're having a wonderful day. It's been a great day talking about accountability. And we've got so much more to talk about. Go ahead and get your little snack, get hydrated, and don't miss the next segment.
This is a world premiere.
And we are back, Culture Call, right here with L. Spencer Smith on Praise 93.3. It's a fabulous day. The sun is shining. Yeah. It's supposed to be a heat wave this week, y'all, so be careful. Yeah, we're in the month of August, and that's typically the hottest month of the summer, coming from out of July into August. So you all be very, very careful. And make sure that when you send your children to school, put some sunscreen along with the lotion, because those of us who have tremendously melanated skin, we get a little ashy, right? And so we put lotion and Vaseline. But go ahead and make sure you put some sunscreen on them as well, as they'll be outside and recess and all those different kinds of things. Don't want them to get sunburned or whatever, because we're still expecting the heat wave because of all the rain and humidity. It makes it hotter. So you can't just say, it's the weatherman says, it's 90 degrees, 95 degrees. No, actually, when you add in that humidity, that moisture in the air, the heat index really goes up into the hundreds. And so you got to be very, very careful and mindful of all of that. Listen, we have been talking about today accountability. Right? Accountability. And so here it is, 205-752-4800, or you can hit me up on the app. And we'll be talking about this on tomorrow as well, because I believe that every conversation that we have with regards to, things that happen in the culture have nuances when it comes to our community. And one of the things I really want us to understand is that once we put an action out there, once we begin to mobilize in various actions and do certain things, that we cannot absolve ourselves or ignore the reality of a returning response or reaction. That's a law of physics. That's a universal principle, right? That is something how the folks say that the good Lord set in motion, right? That when we are in a space and in a place to where, we have this whole idea of, I'm just going to do this and nothing's going to happen to me. I can do it. It don't matter. I don't care what you say. And no. You better understand that even if I move myself out of the way, I'm sitting here telling you, don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. I'm really trying to get you to understand, not to fuss at you. I'm not coming against you. But what I am saying is that I need you, before you do this, consider, right? I don't like my job. I don't like this. I don't like that. Okay, I get it and I understand it. But please consider this, that you quit your job, you walk off your job, how you going to pay your bills? How you going to pay your mortgage? How you going to pay your rent? How you going to pay your car note? How you going to go grocery shopping? How you going to go to the restaurant? How you going to buy clothes? You mad at the boss and everything, and you're not even considering that there are other factors that are going on with this. There are other factors that you must consider. And it's not always, listen to me, and it's not always the other person's responsibility. See, sometimes people are watching and they're waiting for you to do certain things because they already have a preconceived actions of what they're getting ready to do to you. Right? They already know that it could be a setup. That's why you got to think it through. Accountability is about thinking it through. Accountability is simply basic math. That in accountability, hear me now, in accountability, 2 + 2 does not always equal 4. 2 + 2 could equal 5 and above, because you're going to get back more than the action you put out. You feel what I'm saying? See, 2 + accountability is a different kind of math. It's math indeed, but you need to understand. Someone said about 2 + 2 = 4. It depends on what you're talking about. Because in accountability mathematics says 2 + 2 is going to equal 5 or more. Because you can put an action out there, and guess what's going to happen? Guess what's going to happen? You might get way more than you bargained for. Absolutely. You may get things that happen that you didn't even see coming your way. So you have to consider all of that. Yeah. You have to consider all of that my actions may not come back equally, or better yet, come back in the same intensity. Yeah. You see, if somebody says, do not walk on the grass, do not walk on the grass, and you walk on the grass, it could cause you a fine, right? Then when you walk on that grass, because you saw the sign, but you just decided, and you get caught, you don't know that's a $200-300 fine. Parking in the handicap spot, you know you won't have no handicap sticker. Boy, I can see how y'all looking at me. Listen, you know you don't have no handicap sticker, but I'm just running in and getting something from Publix, from Piggly Wiggly, from Winn-Dixie. I'm just gonna run in. Yeah, you ran in and parked in that handicap spot without a tag. Here it is, the police at your car. You can't fuss. And here's what is not a good argument. I was just running in to get some. No, sir. No, sweet. That's not how that works. No. You saw it's on the sign. The sign says a fine of $250. And depending on where you are, the fine can go up to $500. Parking in a handicap spot. but you were such in a rush and you didn't want to wait because you left your house late and I got to get in here so I can take care of this business. Okay, fine. Right. You made the decision to leave late. You made the decision to park there. But what you don't have a choice over is because when you park there, you're saying, I have already concluded that if the police come or a law enforcement official come or a meter maid or whatever comes, I'm going to go ahead and take this ticket. But see, already we have an argument that tries to help us avoid accountability. We already in our minds have an argument to avoid the fact that I don't want to pay for this ticket. I don't want to deal with this. I'm not going to give up my money. Well, you gave up your money when you parked there. You made a $250, at least a $250 bet, a gamble that the police or the meter maid was not going to come. And they don't care. They have a job to do. They don't care if you're late for your job. They have a job to do. They don't care what business you're doing in the courthouse. They don't care what business you're doing in the restaurant. They don't care what business you got, in the mall. No, you park in a spot where you were not designated to park. So now what is we going to do? We're going to come out being vehement. We're going to come out being angry. We're going to come out being upset. And I'm just, you ain't got to give me no. What you need to do is be begging for mercy to negotiate the consequence, because you're going to be held accountable. Because guess what? They could say, well, I'm going to give you a warning this time. Don't do it again. Right? Consequence. What you just did was found mercy in your consequence. I'm not going to do it this time, but don't do it again. Or you could choose them you could park there on a day where you get somebody who has no concept of mercy and say, well, hey, you got this $250 ticket. That's fine. Pay it, call the office. All right, yeah, okay, have a good day. You can cuss and fuss and stump and all that. You can be mad, all that but you're going to pay this. This is your consequence. I didn't do anything wrong. The officer didn't do anything wrong. The meter maid didn't do anything wrong. They just gave you the consequences for the actions. You got to take ownership of the action and the consequence. And that is what is called accountability. That's what that's called. That's what that's called. Do you know how many people we just talking and I just described a bunch of folks. I want to sit in the front. Yeah, okay, but to sit in the front, you got to come at 10:30. Here you come traipsing in at 11 o'clock and mad because the usher don't want to sit you in the front. But if there's a seat up there, that ain't got nothing to do with what we're talking about. That it has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking. The issue is, were you on time? You decided to get there at 11. The cutoff was 10:30. So you made a choice to come 30 minutes late. And now you're fussing at the folks, the ushers and everybody else, because they don't sit you where you want to sit. No, take accountability, because the consequence of you coming 11 means that you can't sit in the front like you wanted to. Suck it up, be mad, get an attitude, or better yet, take it to God in prayer and say, God, please help me next time to get to church on time at 10:30, by at least 10:30, which means if the cutoff is 10:30, then you need to be there by 10:25 to get the seat you want in the front. You see? See, people want to do actions, but they don't want to be accountable. And accountability and actions go together. They are inextricably woven together. That's what it is. They are inextricably woven together. And if you don't want certain consequences, then you should not put out certain actions. And that, too, is accountability. I decided not to do that because here's what I thought was going to happen. And so, no, I didn't do that. That's accountability. Accountability is just not what you do. Accountability is also the consequences that happen as a result of you doing what you decided to do. You feel me? Yeah. That's how that works. That's how that works. And we have to start conditioning. Start another generation. Start to get, okay, don't go to school and cut up. Don't go to school and get your work. Don't have them people calling me, because if I come to the school, I don't want to hear about gentle parenting. I don't care what people say about me. I don't care what judgments. Listen, the school resource officer, he can come in the office too. Because if he tried to lock me up, then there's going to be two people I'm going to have to spank. You and the resource officer. Because what the resource officer will not do is tell me how to parent my child, who understood that we're functioning under accountability in our house. And we had this discussion, didn't we? Right? Did we have discussion what will happen if I had to come up to the school? Yes, sir. Right? And you know how I am about doing what you're supposed to do. Now, there is something that I can't do, because now your consequences has drugged me in here. Your teacher has decided to call me, and I had to find a way to get here to deal with your foolishness. And that now you can't expect me. You can't negotiate consequence when you knew them. Let me say that again. You can't negotiate consequences when you were fully aware of them at the point of your initial action. Now you don't want me to embarrass you. Man, Dad, you embarrassed me in front of all my friends. No, you embarrassed yourself. No. I am simply a part and a character within the context of a consequence. Be accountable for it all. Because I wasn't even supposed to come to school. I wasn't even supposed to be in this classroom. Your actions summons me here via the consequence. See? You see, and it ain't hard. It ain't hard. We're just so used to not understanding what accountability is that we'll quickly call it you judging me. Ain't nobody judging you. But look what you did. Look what you're doing. You can't ask me to divorce my judgment because you lacked it on the point of your initial action. You feel what I'm saying? And that's what accountability is, accepting the action and the consequences for all of your choices and all of your decisions. Listen, this is the Culture Call with L. Spencer Smith right here on Praise 93.3 FM. It's been an awesome day, a wonderful day. Got a little bit more to go. I need you to stay right here. Keep it locked and don't miss it.
This is a world premiere.
Well, family, we've come to the end of another Culture Call. Thank you so very much. As I do every week and every morning that I'm on, have the privilege to be on, I want to thank you and appreciate you for joining us for this conversation, especially this one. I think it is so important that we talk about accountability, that we don't just live in this world where we don't have to be responsible or take ownership for our own actions. I think it is important for us in terms of growth and maturity and forward movement that we really think about all of the things that are in our care, that we are proper stewards of our times, that we are proper stewards of our thoughts, that we are managing our actions well. I can't reiterate it enough that every action has a level of consequence once we decide to do them that's unfolding or unleashed, right? And so, if we're gonna be big and bad enough to make a decision to do a thing, then we also have to take ownership of the consequence. That's what it means to be accountable. If you're in a position, if you're, whether you're a worker, a boss, whether you're a pastor, a leader, doesn't matter what you are, whether you're a teacher, a student, a child, a parent, all of us have to learn the act of accountability. It is unavoidable, and we have to do that. So many times we look at each other and we say, hey, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to do that. And we're never really clearly understanding what really is going to unfold if we go down that path. If I do this, what's going to take place? Yeah. We never really think about that. And I think it's high time for us to think about that. In this culture, in this season, that you don't really ever get away from your actions. You don't ever get away from consequences. That's facts. You don't just ever get away simply because you know, I don't want to do this, or this is not going to happen to me, or X, Y, Z, or ABC. You better think about everything that you do. You better think about how it affects your life and how it affects those who are connected to you. Because guess what? Your decisions are not made in a vacuum. I know it's a personal decision, but every decision has a rippling effect of what it causes for other people who are in the sphere of your life. So you have to think about it. Am I going to be just a person who is random and careless and not think a thing through? I did it because I felt it. Or are you going to be that person who walks in accountability, that owns both the action and the consequence? And I feel like when we do that as a community, we'll get much better at doing life together. Listen, as my grandmother and my mother always says at the end of every phone call, I love you a bushel, I love you a peck, and I love you a hug around the neck. This is L. Spencer Smith right here on the Culture Call, Praise 93.3 FM. Have a beautiful morning. Stay safe. Peace.